Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our workshop webinar series in which we're talking about patron-facing interfaces. For this particular webinar or workshop, we're going to be talking about the Alexandria Explorer Builder and Researcher Preferences. This is the second in our patron-facing interface series. We are going to be probably doing one more come the new year, but do plan on not seeing one of our webinars next month. We are also going to be making available a survey that you can fill out in response to the workshop, in which you can give us advice on new topics you might want to see, or if you'd prefer we move straight on to item management come the new year. Now, this is going to be a recorded non-live webinar. We did have some issues with our recording process this week, unfortunately. So those of you that did attend already, I have to apologize. This is going to sound a little bit different, but maybe it'll give you some ideas outside of that. My name is Josh Hutchings. I'm one of our certified trainers. I did the original live webinar with our other trainer, Jake Vanderlinden, but he won't be joining us today. And so we won't be having a Q&A portion and all of that. We'll just be getting straight down to work. All right. So our topic today, like I said earlier, is the Explorer Builder mainly. In talking about Explorer Builder, we'll explain its nature, how it's used, how to set up buttons and panes within the Explorer Builder, and then also the researcher preferences that help us to input those different interfaces we're going to create into the search, the researcher, and also the Explore interfaces. All right, to start off with the Explorer Builder, the introduction and where it's used. I'm going to go ahead and pop us over to the program itself so we can take a look at that. And I'm going to start us off in the Librarian Interface, the most common interface that you all use on a day-to-day basis. To reach the Explorer Builder, you're going to want to click the toolbox off to the far left. It's that little red one. Once under Tools, refer to the Management section down below, and then under Management, you're looking in the bottom middle for that little rocket ship, Explorer Builder. When you click that, it's going to load up, and you're going to see a nice big list of our already existing Explorer panes. Pane is the word we use to refer to this window of buttons. And here's an example of one that you all may be familiar with because it's under our Explore window or Alex Explorer. The Explorer window is just one demonstration of how you can put into action the Explorer Builder and its many powerful tools and capabilities. One of the other interfaces you may be familiar with is our Alex search window. And if I scroll down through our list here, I'm going to choose the search pane. There we are. And if I click the search window, you'll see that there. And last but not least, the researcher. And just to show you there, that is where it is. Now, these three interfaces here in my program, or the one I'm showing you now, is based on a demo that we have. So your personal interface will probably look a little bit different. Don't be thrown by that. What we have in our demo is just to demonstrate what you can do with the Alexandria Explorer Builder. So to start off with, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this interface and what all the buttons mean and do. So this list on the left, like I said, are panes that we've built in there to utilize for demo, but also mainly to activate the Alexandria Explorer window. The Alexandria Explorer window allows you to choose a button and from that button cascade down to other panes of buttons. And then these other buttons will perform searches within Alexandria based on the topics listed. So say, for example, I'm a younger student who really likes books on animals. I choose animals and it takes me to this bank of buttons that has different types of animals. I can go ahead and choose whichever particular type of animal I like. Let's say I like reptiles. And it will then do a search of my collection based on me having set up this button to search for reptiles. Now, I know that this is all a little bit cryptic just yet. Don't worry, we'll get into it and we'll explain how all this happens. I wanted to show you that so that you would know that's where all of these different panes come from. Now, we do have a lot of people who do use an Explorer interface similar to ours, or they will take ours and change it to meet their needs. You are very welcome to do that. None of these are necessarily proprietary to working, and some of these terms may not apply to your internal curriculums or needs. And so therefore, any of these panes that are here on the left can be changed. You can also create brand new panes, which is what we'll be doing today, and that may help you to jumpstart setting up your own Explorer or modifying our existing one. All right, you will also see that I do have a few other options under here to demonstrate what you can do with panes. For example, one that takes you to other facilities through, say, a URL, so that people can explore their collections, such as a middle school or high school. Or a search button that takes you to immediate resources that you have available for people to see or check out or whatever it might be, or say ebooks. We also do have an ebooks pane that shows our different partners that you could have buttons for. These buttons can be set up to take you just to their general URL or web page, or to the specific part of the web page which allows you to log in as a user for either yourself and your needs as a staff member, or for students and for the books that they would be able to read. We also have some that you could have it set up for per grade, for a certain curriculum or search list or reading list for grades. Same for like a middle school. It's really up to you. It's pretty endless what you can do with it. So, all right. So popping back over to our tiles, let's go ahead and now focus on managing a pane, creating a button, and applying a pane. So to create a pane, you're going to hit the plus button at the bottom left. Now make note, there is some other little options here. If you need to remove a pane you've created, you can hit the minus button. You just need to make sure that pane is highlighted. Now, you will not be able to remove the panes that we've put into the interface, those ones with dots next to them. They are built in there so that they can have the Explorer Builder run or help it to run. Do make note that under this gear here, you have a few other options, such as duplicating a pane, importing a pane. So if maybe one of your associates from another school has a really cool pane that you want to mimic, or maybe the district has set up a pane that they want to roll out, you can import their pane from yours, or even export a pane to all of, for your other associates or coworkers at other facilities, or all your panes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus button, and that's going to bring up a brand new pane for us. Now you'll see first and foremost, we want to give it a new name, and I'm going to call this our new pane, so it's easy for us to find. Now, do pay attention, whoops, clicked a little link there. That took us to our pane immediately, just for example, which you could do after it's created, but I don't have any buttons yet. You'll see that there are 16 buttons in a pane. Now, our various interfaces, such as the researcher, gives you the option to have one pane. The search gives you the option to have two. So that's 16 buttons upon 16 buttons, or 32 in total. The Explorer also just gives you the one 16-button pane. But do remember that just like Explorer, you can cascade down to other panes. So if you find you don't have enough room, or you want to keep the buttons simple, just have one or two, but then open it up to more buttons and more other panes, that is one way you could go to make it look a little nicer and keep the aesthetic. And it's really up to you what order you want to put them in. Here you'll see you've got 4 in a row. I've seen folks put them in a square, or even checkerboarded, whatever you find is best and looks most aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so there are 4 different types of button functions that you can set up within the Explorer Builder. I'm going to demonstrate each one of them and walk us through setting them up. I'm going to go ahead and click on the one here in the middle. We'll keep all 4 of ours right here in a square. And I'm going to go under Label and Action and click my Action drop-down. And these are the different actions that button can perform. I'm going to go ahead and choose Display Message. That's our very first one. Now, displaying a message means that you have the option of showing the person clicking the button a body of text that would otherwise maybe be more difficult for you to communicate, such as if you had to print and hand out flyers, or to hang something up on a wall, or to write something into your web interface for like a school website or something like that. Here, you can just create a nice button, copy and paste the text, or type it out yourself, and have a nice body of text for anybody who's going through these interfaces and needs to have an update about something you're doing. So we'll go ahead and call our first one, we'll call it Holiday Party. And for the body of our text, we'll say, it's party time. Our holiday party will be on this Thursday at 2 p.m. Should capitalize my Thursday, right? Oh, and I do have my little spelling helper here, Grammarly. So if you see that, that's what that little guy is. If you don't have that on yours, that's okay. It's just a little addition to my browser that I've added, a plugin. All right, so there's the body of our text. Now, one thing you might notice is missing is a nice picture for that. There are a few different ways you can get pictures into your Alexandria Explorer Builder panes. One way is to use our already existing pictures. We have a whole catalog of different pictures that you can use at any time for your own needs. You also can get pictures from the internet. I will show you both ways. Well, technically there is other ways any picture basically you find, so if you've got like a graphic designer there within the district or your facility, and they've created logos for you or can create you a new pane, absolutely utilize that great resource. But for right now, I'm just going to use one of our pictures. Now, the way that you were able to grab a picture most easily from one of our other panes is to use a cool little feature we've got built in called the Copy From pane. Now, to use the Copy From pane feature, you want to have the pane displayed at the top that you're going to be changing. And then when you click Copy From pane, you'll see it brings up one other pane down below. This is the pane that you're copying from. And so what I'll do is, since I've got a holiday party, I think I'm going to look for the holidays pane. So I'll highlight that off to the left. You'll see now I have a whole bank of different pictures that correlate with the holidays. So I'm going to go ahead and choose, and for a holiday party, let's use maybe, we'll use the New Year's Day. That looks like a good party one, right? Let's use that one. I'm picky about my pictures. I want them to look nice. You'll see you have two options for what you can do in your copying of these buttons. You can copy either the action and icon. That's basically copying the whole button. So you would grab whatever button it is with one click of your mouse and drag it up to wherever you want to put it, and that moves that whole button for you. But if you just want the icon or picture, change that option and then grab the picture you want. So I said I want New Year's Day. I'm going to drag and drop it up there, and boom, a perfect picture for a holiday party. Once you're done, just make sure to hit save. And now if we close out of our Copy From pane and click back on our button, you'll see I have a nice holiday party button with an image, a title that shows up for people to understand what it is, and then text that will show up. And don't worry, I'm going to demonstrate how all of these work for you. So you'll see them in action. Now, one way to also kind of manage your images or buttons is this little gear right here. You see you can do a search of your computer for an icon or button. You can also clear the button or basically delete it, so that would delete the whole button. Or you can clear the icon only, so if there's a picture you don't like or you don't need and you want to put another one in its place, you can do that. I'm going to show us how to add the icon for our next button, and that'll be finding an image from the internet. All right. Let's go ahead and go to our next button. And this one, I'm going to take us to a third-party resource, Pear. Not sure if you guys have heard of that, but it's just it's one of the many resources out there for helping you get information to your staff and your students. Now this one is our second option, open a URL. And to get a URL, there's really a few different ways. If you know it offhand, such as google.com or whatever it might be, you can just type it directly in. Sometimes it might be better to do like a little bit of a Google search. But I'm going to bring up Pear right here. And one way is you can go to their website and just copy their URL directly from out of there. Now, if you need to have it be, say, the login interface, maybe make sure you go to that URL first. Ooh, and that's a nice long one. But it really doesn't matter what the length of the URL is as long as you get the right one. So now that I've got Pear URL, I'm going to pop back to our Explorer Builder, and I'm going to paste that URL. And you see I'm just right-clicking with my mouse and pasting. Now we do want a nice image for Pear Deck, sorry, here's me getting it wrong. Let's see, so maybe I can find a Pear Deck image. Let's open up their URL real fast, And this would be kind of the similar process you'd have for any internet image. So I think they've got one down at the bottom here. Oh, there we go. There's a nice image for Pear Deck. Now I'm just going to go ahead and move my browser slightly, grab that image and drag and drop it onto my desktop. Now you'll see when you drag and drop an image from the internet, there are a few different ways it will come over to your desktop. You want to make sure it's got something on the end that makes it a picture, so like a .png or a .jpeg. If it says something like a web doc or whatever, it probably won't work. So it may take you a moment or two to kind of figure out how to work the process. If you want to grab any other images from the internet, I found doing a quick Google search can be helpful because there's so much out there. So say you want like a nice book icon. A bunch come up and you can grab whatever works best. Let's grab this nice circle one. And usually you want to right click on it and choose Save Image As. And that allows you to save it to wherever you want. So we'll leave it on our desktop. Sometimes you can drag and drop from here too, but that may not work as well. It looks like this one would work, so we could do that as well. So there's a couple of different ways to go about it. So I'm going to move our browser back. I'm going to close out of our internet search there, go back to our Explorer Builder, and let's get that Pear Deck icon in, all right? So again, a couple ways you could go. You can grab the image from here and drag and drop it, nice and quick. Or if it's somewhere else other than your desktop and a little harder to find, you can go under this gear and use that button I mentioned earlier, the add icon. And that allows you to search your computer and go to any of the other files or folders and find the image you're looking for. So there's our Pear Deck icon. I'll click open and boop, there's our cute little pear. It's all set to go. So next time when we use that button, it's going to open up that URL for Pear Deck. Now down below, there's one other feature for this. You can open it in a new tab or web browser. This works well if you want to leave the Researcher, Search, or Explorer open after they've clicked the button. Sometimes though, if it's going to say like an ebook vendor, you may just want to allow the kids to go directly to that page and close out of the Researcher, Search, or Explorer, because it gives them the ability to just begin then reading, whatever might be the case. So, all right. So our next button feature, I'm going to go ahead and click a new button, click our action dropdown, and you'll see the next one is perform search. So performing a search allows you to perform a search of your Alexandria catalog. And there's a number of ways you can go about it. You're going to hear the term search string a little bit here. I'll talk more about search strings to help you understand how it goes. Now, the easiest way I've found to do a search is to pop under the search section, that tool that you always use to help the kids or your staff or patrons do searches. Now, let's go ahead and stick in the theme of holidays since that's pretty much where we are. And I'm just going to do a search for Christmas. Now, if you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm sorry. It's just a good example. So, all right. Now that we've got up a nice section of books or group of books, the way to grab this as a search string so you can then share it under Explorer Builder is to click this link icon right here. And that's that little box with an arrow. Now you'll see when I click it, it gives me two different options. One is a URL, which if I click and copy, I can paste into a web browser for it to do that search and take me to my search interface directly. That is a handy little tool to have in maybe other situations. But in this case, the one we want is this one right here, the search string. The search string will do exactly that. It's just set up in a way to tell the program to do it. So let's pop back here to Explorer Builder, and I'm going to right click and paste, and there's our search string. I'll go ahead and call it Christmas books. Now you can have this be any way you want, all capitals. Be aware there is a limit to how many characters you can have. So if it begins to cut it off, just be aware you might need to change your terminology slightly. But now we've got a new button, we just need a picture. So I'm going to use our copy from pane option. And let's go to our holiday section. And why not? Of course, a Christmas tree. Let's use that. So I'm going to grab my Christmas tree icon and drop that in, hit save, and we are all set to go. There's our third button. Easy peasy, right? I'm sure you're all getting the hang of it. All right, so I'm going to click this action drop down and grab our last option, which is go to pane. Now this is the one I've probably talked about the most so far, but now you're going to see it in action. And remember, this is the one that correlates with how the Explorer works. So go to pane means you are creating a button that when I click it, that button you've created, it takes you to another bank of buttons. A great way to keep people cascading into more specific reasons or searches. And then you can keep doing that if you need. So if I choose animals, oh, it does a search. Looks like most of these do searches, but you could keep your buttons going if you wanted. So, all right, let's go ahead and close out of that and pop back over to our Explorer Builder. And I'm going to call this our, maybe we have a fun mythology curriculum course going on right now. And so we'll call this Mythology Ideas. Now that we've named it, I'm going to tell it where to go. Now, you can use any of our panes for any of your purposes, but there is no limit to how many panes you can create. So if you want to create a pane to tell it to go to another bank of your buttons, you can do that. You would just save this, hit the plus button, and create that new pane. And then when you're ready, you come under here to select the pane, and it gives you the list of all the panes that you have on the left there. Now, I am just going to go ahead and choose one that we have called Mythology, since I don't want to make you watch me create another pane. And we'll use that for our Mythology Ideas here button. Now, when you see this in action, you'll see it's going to just send people to individual searches around mythology. All right, now we need a good picture for this, right? So let's go ahead and do a copy from pane, and let's choose mythology. It's going to be down under the M's. And I kind of like Medusa the best, so we'll use Medusa for our mythology ideas. And I just need the icon, so still doing good there. Close out of that. And there we go. We have a mythology ideas button that takes us to the mythology pane. And that is pretty much all there is to it for creating a button and a new pane for yourselves. And you can have as many of these buttons and panes as you want. So now that we've got this set up, let's see it in action, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our preferences for the patron-facing interfaces. And these preferences are going to allow us to assign this pane to those three interfaces we've been talking about, the Researcher, Search, and Explorer. We're going to look at how the pane looks once it's set up and play with it. And also, I'm going to walk you through the preferences in general, because there are some other handy preferences under there for you to see. All right. Now, do remember, all of this is all towards you giving people the ability to search this collection you've worked so hard on. All of the data that you put in under subjects, genres, whatever it might be, you have the ability to utilize that. And that's why it's handy to have such nice, thorough records. So let's pop back over here to our, so we're under our Librarian Interface now. And the way that we get to the preferences I'm referring to is under Tools. And it's along with the normal preference interface you would normally go to. But it's the one other key to this whole process of using the Explorer Builder. So Preferences is up at the top right here. Under Preferences, once it is loaded, you will see that you're going to go to the Management section on the middle left, and our Researcher or Patron-Facing Interface Preferences are the second row down, second column to the right. There we are. Now, first and foremost, let's look at the Researcher itself. So that's that interface that you normally would see when you open up your URL. I've got my training.goalexandria.com URL. Yours would be more appropriate to your school. Now, where the Researcher comes in handy is this is basically a hub that you could use for whatever your purposes might be at your facility or your district or whatever. This hub can be set up to accommodate the needs of any particular group that you feel would be most appropriate, whether that group is going to be staff, students, third-party folks, you name it. These buttons can take them to wherever they go. If it's searches in your library, it's whatever you need. We've already gone over panes and buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop back to our preferences, walk us through setting it up so that it's going to use our new pane, all right? So at the very top here, you see you have the option to select a new pane. We're going to scroll down and choose our new pane here. And you could do a search or filter if you need. if you have wound up creating a whole lot of different ones or you don't feel like scrolling down. But you should be able to verify that that new pane is now here, showing up. Then under Style, we're going to go ahead and change it. Maybe I want to see Classic. Make it a little different. Make note as well that you can set up an icon or logo here. That's really nice if you want to have something like the school mascot or some type of designation as to why you have this interface set up the way you do, something that references students or staff or whatever it might be. We've just got the Alexandria researcher there. And then down below is a really handy tool that affects all of your patron-facing interfaces. In other words, the researcher, scout, and search, as well as explore, excuse me. And what it does is it will time out if that time has been reached. So if somebody's signed into the search interface and they're trying to put holds on books and reviews, but they're in a big hurry and they leave, you can have that interface time out at a specific time. Really handy, because you know how kids get. They're creative. They check out other books and other people's files. That's a great tool. Next is the auto hide feature. Auto hide is our last option to specify under researcher. Auto hide gives you the ability to hide specific status types from your searches within the interfaces. So if you do not want lost items or discarded items to show up in the searches that the patrons or users are making, you can come under here, enable it, and turn those on. Some folks do like to show some of these statuses for various reasons. For example, if they have ordered books, but they still need to have barcodes put on them and all that, they can import them into the program under an in-processing status, and then kids can see, ooh, these are the new books that are coming. And then once they're done with in-processing, you can move them to a status of available. So that is our auto hide feature. Let's go ahead and save it now that we've set up all of our new researcher press, and let's pop to the researcher. Now, an important thing to remember is anytime you make changes under these interfaces, you do need to refresh. Since it's a web-based program, it's not going to auto refresh. So I'm going to hit a refresh button here, and there are all of our new buttons. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what they all do. First and foremost, our holiday party button. There's our text. Now people can know when to come to our holiday party. And of course, all that text would have been harder to communicate in various ways, and maybe you might put it up in other fashions, but that's a great way to let people know certain information they need to know. We've got people who use that button to help direct people about being library volunteers, about when there might be a guest speaker or reader, about field trips that they might be having, you name it. Next is our Pear Deck link. And if you remember, this is going to take us to the Pear Deck website. So when I click it, boop, it takes us right over. There we go, pretty straightforward. All right, next is our Christmas books icon. Was intended to perform a search of our collection for the term Christmas. So when I click this, you're going to see that it's going to load up into a search screen. It's going to take us out of that interface, and it's going to perform that Christmas book search. Now that would work a little differently in the Explorer Builder or the search interface, Explorer Search, since those interfaces are intended to directly search. Down at the bottom right are mythology ideas. Mythology ideas, if you remember, was set up to take us to the mythology pane. The mythology pane has these buttons in it. And when I click them, it will do a search of our program or our collection for those terms. So we'll say creatures. You'll see it takes us to the search interface and does a search for mythology creatures. Doesn't look like I have a ton of them. That's okay. It demonstrates what it does. So those are the buttons we created. Let's go ahead and pop back to our preferences and we'll talk about other interfaces. The next one that you can apply those panes to is that Explore window that we've been talking about. Now you're going to see some very close similarities between Explore, Search, and Scout because these are all patron-facing searching interfaces. They allow them to search the collection immediately and in different ways. The Explorer, like we have talked about, is a topic-based search tool, and Search is that one that you're familiar with where you can search directly any item or whatever you would need. And then also Scout, which is a little bit more of the simple-based searching. By the way, for any more information you'd like to have about the Scout interface or status, patron status, or some other topics, we did have one other patron webinar last month, and that should be available to you in our monthly webinar release screen under our documentation. So, and you can find that under, if you click on the question mark up at the top right here, or through most of our mailers that go out. So, all right. So let's go ahead and talk about Explorer. So the Explorer preferences, you'll find that one of the most common for these logins is the ability to, for these interfaces, the ability to log in. Logging in means that you have the option of restricting access to that interface to a certain group of individuals. That works well if maybe you aren't going to be offering this tool to everyone, and so it wouldn't be available for everyone to use. Next, you can specify what preferred study program that interface will adhere to or show first. Next, you can also specify a different color group. We'll say professional maybe. And you can select a different pane here. We'll go ahead and use our own, since we put all that great work into it, and hit OK there. Now to pop to our other tabs, I have a results list option. You'll see this for search and some others for Scout, but there's a lot of options here you have for turning on and off buttons within the Explorer interface for when a search happens. So say, for example, if I do a search, these buttons that you have pop up under the search interface, let's find a good book example. So a number of these buttons and other terms that show up can be disabled using these preferences here. So if you find that they're not necessary for you or your kids don't use them, maybe come under here and get those disabled. Another really important feature of these search interfaces is the search result limit that is returned. For folks who have larger collections, I almost always suggest kick that up to 100. By default, it's normally set at 50. Normally when you've got younger kids, they don't like to pore through lots of books. With older kids, they're usually searching a little bit more closely. Teachers, staff, same thing. Next, under full details, you have a few other more kind of behind the scenes MARC-oriented things that you can specify, as well as a link to Amazon if it is needed. Often that works well if you've got people who maybe want to go out and find the books themselves that you have in your collection. All right, now that we've got all that set up, I'm gonna go ahead and pop back over here to Explore and refresh it so you can see what it looks like. There we go. There's our new Explorer interface, new color scheme and everything. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next topic, the search interface. The search interface is probably the most complex one and has the most options. You do have the option to log in as well as set your preferred study program, as well as a different style, which we'll go ahead and set it to classic. You can also set it to actually show the study program in search. So if you're using this feature, you probably might be using this feature, but that allows your study program to show up. I do know that there are a number of folks who don't use them, so you would want to make sure this was turned off if you don't. Usually if there's no information inside of the study program filled for your items, then it won't show up anyways. So, and down below, here we can specify our panes. So let's go ahead and click select our pane for our first one, and we'll specify our new one that we've created. And we'll go ahead and change this bottom pane to extras. Okay. Now that we've got that set up, let's pop to our results list. Now you'll see this is almost exactly like Explorer. In fact, I think it is exactly. Same purpose. This is where you can disable some of those little buttons and features if your kids or your people or users don't need them, or you want to get them out of the way and make the interface a little cleaner. And then under full details, same as the Explorer interface, you've got some more behind the scenes kind of stuff you can set up. All right, so that's setting up our search. I'm gonna go ahead and pop over to search, do a refresh here. And there you'll see we've got our new panes and all of our extras. These are all third-party groups that we do work with, so you may be familiar with some of them. Now, a little quick note on how the searching can work here. If you remember for our first button we set up, we just put in Christmas. Now you're not limited to just doing a single search like that. You can actually set up a lot of different types of searches. You can use any of these drop-downs that are here and do, say, a subject-based search, one specific to your study programs or mediums or genres. You can also do a search that utilizes the advanced searching dropdowns to make it a more specific and unique search to your individual needs. You can also create lists. So if I bring up a list of different books I want to put in my specific search, I can put it under, and you do want to make sure that you're logged in to do this, as the temp list just gets removed. So if you've got a specific list you've created under patron status, and remember, if you want to learn a little bit more about patron status, take a look at our webinar from last month. But you can come under here and you can choose for each book to add it to that list you've created. And once you've got your list all set up, you know, and you can come under here and you can go, okay, so I've got some for dog, put some for cat. Once you've come under here and set up your whole list, you can then go to that list and there will be a link to that right here. Again, this is our temp list, so it's a little different. But if I have a permanent list, I can link to it. And then that link goes under our Explore Builder specific to that button and allows you to search. It's just the same as this search string. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about search strings here in a second when we get to our slideshow. Just wanted to kind of highlight how searches can work for your buttons. All right, so popping back here to preferences, our Scout. Our Scout interface is pretty straightforward. You'll see some of the similar buttons to the other interfaces. Our styles are a little simpler. And the results list is simpler as well, less options. Now, for those of you who haven't seen our webinar from last month, we did highlight the Scout really heavily last month and talked about how it's our new mobile-facing interface. So it scales down to whether you're using tablets, larger screens such as I'm on, or even a mobile device. And people can now log into it, place holds, a lot of goodies. So one little feature that's a little unique to the Scout interface is you can choose whether you want to hide or show unavailable items. So do make note of that. Sometimes you maybe want to show unavailable items so the kids can see that an item is in your collection, it's just checked out. And one new feature we've put into the Scout interface to highlight that is color coding. So make sure to play with that when you get a moment. Next in our list is the slideshow here. For those of you who haven't played with this, it's really cool. So maybe take some time to take a look at it and see what you think. You'll see that it utilizes search strings, just like our button was that we created. Now, I know these search strings can look a little freaky. You'll see that we've got a link here to take you to an article on our wiki that gives you more information about search strings. Now, this can be really handy to do a quick read through if you are wanting to get more into the deeper end of Explore Builder setting up and using. So you'll see that we have a demonstration or an explanation, thank you, of how we have decided to have the search strings set up and why we use them. And then below this, we explain different types of search strings and how they work and how to have them set up, whether it be for authors, awards, etc. And then also what the different operators mean for the street strings, whether you're going to perform a particular type of Boolean search or not. I'm sure you're already seeing the power and the implications of all this. And then also examples that you can probably use and mirror for your own to kind of help you get a little bit more going. Now, we know search strings are a little odd, and it looks a little bit like, lines of code, but they're so powerful, and we felt that it was one of the best ways to present your capabilities to do searching in your collection. And of course, it's important to remember, they're not patron-facing, so you're not requiring your students or anybody to do this, but you have the capability to enhance buttons, slideshows, and all that with those search strings. So popping back over here to our preferences, I've gone ahead and put in a search string for Christmas, just like we had for our other books. You can specify a unique layout. That's the way it's displayed on the screen. And then also a speed. This is the progression of the slides and how often they flip. And then also the movement of these slides as they move from one slide to the other. We'll set it to the Ken Burns. That's a fun one. And then whatever style you'd like to have. We'll set it to Seafoam. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I'm going to choose, and not to miss this button, Predefined Searches is a way that you can use searches that we've already set up or saved ones that you have from before. So you can use, a really common one that we find that people ask for a lot is recently added titles. That gives you the ability to show people all those new titles you've put into the program. So I'm going to go ahead and choose View Slideshow here, and that'll bring up our slideshow and just demonstrate how it works. So here's our first one. I think I've got it set to 5 seconds. So boop, It fades on out with that Ken Burns style. Oh, and look, I'm missing some cover art. I need to make sure I get that in there. Now this works really well in, say, front offices, on a big spare monitor you have in the library, anywhere where you want to generate interest in the library and let people know about new cool books that you're bringing in. All right, now back to our preferences here. The patron status window, pretty simple, just as a layout option. Self-service, also very simple. Not sure if you guys use our self-service window, but that is also another great way to generate interest in the library. You can have your self-service window set up to do check-in and check-out, or just one or the other. We will have some folks who have a student aid where they'll set them up with a check-in self-service station and just get them going on check-in to help them clear carts and make sure it actually happens. It's a great way to give people little responsibilities and get them kind of loving the library process, touching the books. Now, last but not least under our preferences is group search. Now, this one's a little bit of a deeper water thing. Don't worry if you're not aware of it or you've never heard of it. It's a little bit of a rarer thing that people do use. What it does allow you to do is to search multiple collections of Alexandria in different ways, such as multiple collections at once, or to be able to link to those different collections from your search interface so that you can search a library, in the other city really quickly without having to go necessarily to their collection. If you are interested in learning more about this, definitely give us a call and we will get you off on the right track. Now, since this wasn't a live webinar session today, obviously I wasn't able to answer any Q&A at the end, but hopefully I was able to give you enough just to, get you going, to make you dangerous, get your hands dirty. So any questions you do have, though, make sure you direct them to our customer support team. Now, what we talked about today was the Explorer Builder interface. So that's setting up those cool panes and buttons that you can have throughout the program to make your program more useful and to utilize all that data you're putting in. And then also we went through the researcher preferences. Those are all those patron-facing preferences. I just want to thank you all very much for your time today. Thank you very much again for your patience. The fact that this is a little bit of a different webinar or workshop than what you saw before. I also want to thank you all for taking part in utilizing these tools we're creating. We really would love to hear your feedback. We want to make sure that these tools meet your needs. And the only way we can ensure we're absolutely doing that is if we hear from you. So please give us the feedback through our ideas@companioncorp.com. Put it through our survey. Let our customer support team members know when you're on the phone with them. However you do it, we would love to hear that feedback. And there's their number and their contacts there. Otherwise, just remember, we won't have a webinar next month, but look for one come January. We'll be sending out the notifications. And we appreciate all you do. Love you. Hope you have a good holidays. Take care, everybody.